Hello, hello, hello. TinaO here from TinaO Life, and this is Stories from the Car. Meep, meep. I think I just like saying meep, meep. For those of you who have hung out with me before here with Stories from the Car, you will know I am a core story specialist, which means I'm a professional listener. And hold on a sec. Okay, I'm back. I had to pick up a hitchhiker, as you do where I live. Because, I am the mom to teenagers, and it's one of those things that could, I pick up teenagers because often teenagers, my teenagers might be on the road, and, it could be my baby out there on the road waiting to get a ride. And where I live, it's safe to do this. Those of you who are also very, very concerned about how safe am I, how secure is this, how legal is this, that she's driving and talking at the same time, I am hands-free. And it is raining, so what you're hearing is my windshield wipers. I think in yesterday's, or the last story from the car, you could really hear the rain. So I am a story specialist. What that means is I'm a listener. I support people as they write their book, write their keynote, and I also work with groups in the listening space of what is between people and what is the story of the room. And that's what I do. And these stories from the car, we explore, something that's going on in my brain or something I've encountered, and always from this place from the story perspective. And when I say that, it's not this story of the narrative that we know. It's actually the narrative that we don't know that we're called to listen into. It's a very different thing. Very different thing. And so what I wanted to talk about today is, and this might be a much bigger conversation. This might be actually this might be maybe a part 1 or something. I'm not sure yet. But I want to talk about our spiritual home. And, I use the word spiritual because it's the most accessible. It's the word that, no one's going to go, well, I'm out of here, man. She just said God. Or, I'm out of here because, I don't know, whatever. I think spiritual is something that less people are afraid of. And what I'm really saying, though, is our sacred home. It's actually where we feel at home, where our whole self can be seen and known and heard, and that we belong. And we are so well versed these days, and beautifully so, richly so, in individuation. We are so resourced with who we are as individuals, and owning that and knowing that we are ultimately responsible for our well-being. We are ultimately responsible for our happiness. We are ultimately responsible for, our mindset. We are so fucking responsible. We are so fucking ultimately responsible. And all of that is true. It is all true. We live in a human body. No one else is inside this body but us. No one gets to determine our thoughts but us. No one gets to work with our feelings but us. No one deals with our impulse control or lack of but us. That is true. It's all true. And on this very human plane, we still yearn. We still yearn. And I offer that we don't yearn. We don't yearn because our container isn't strong enough, because our brain isn't smart enough, because our mind isn't controlled enough, because we don't have enough skills. I offer that we yearn because somewhere inside of us there is a knowing that we actually can rest here. Or we are hopeful that we can rest here. And what I ask is, why is it that we are hopeful? Where does that hope come from? And yeah, I know you might say, well, it's because, we come into the world, we are as an infant, and we are raised to know that someone loves us, someone's going to hold us, and then something, ultimately goes dramatically, horribly wrong at some young age. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to be held and known and seen and heard and loved and nurtured, again. And not that that isn't true. And that is totally true. Again, on this human plane, that's our nervous system. Our nervous system, aware that our nervous system says, somebody help me soothe, right? That's co-regulation, attachment, it's all that stuff. And. In those moments that are undefinable, that are cosmic, if you will, or are, I think of Dr. Seuss and the Grinch, right? And when the Grinch's heart goes, 11,000 feet tall or whatever, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In those moments where our hearts are bigger than that are unfathomably bigger. Why is it that we yearn for that? Why is it that without our cognitive reasoning, without our actual choice, like linear thought patterning choice of yearning, why the fuck do we yearn? Why? Where does that come from? What the hell is that yearning? You can't tell me that's a nervous system yearning, because it's not. As someone, and I'm sure you too, who have had multiple traumatic experiences, I know when it's my nervous system talking. When my nervous system needs a bath, when my nervous system needs 8 sweaters and a blanket to wrap myself up in, when my nervous system needs someone to touch my body, my feet, or put their hand on my back so I know that I actually live in a body, that's different than spiritual yearning. Totally different. Totally different. And our spiritual home is a different kind of blanket. My word for this year, if you've been listening for a bit, my word for this year is devotion. And I didn't even really know what that meant. How that word found me, why that word found me. I think my first story from the car was all about that word, devotion. And what's arriving for me right now is this really simple understanding of pillow talk. Why do we have a lover or a beloved? Why do we have a beloved? Well, we have a beloved for many reasons. But I know as someone who has been divorced twice and has been heartbroken before, that part of having a beloved is having that place of rest where my pillow beside your pillow, where I rest my head in my pillow and you rest your head in your pillow, and between the two of us the space is sacred and I rest there. And on this very human plane, this nervous system can rest on this pillow, and between us I can have sacred space. And beyond that pillow, beyond the human plane of that pillow, there is a sacred home. Some of us may experience that sacred home in art, in the way we grow vegetables maybe, in the way we love our animals, in the way that we meditate as we run, in the way the ocean feels on our body. These are moments that have no words, where words are not enough, where you couldn't put them on your pillow and share them. You just couldn't, because they are that big. And I recognize that those of us, and it might be you, who have that yearning inside of you, but may not have what I call shaken hands with God yet about it, or shaken hands with the ocean about it, or shaken hands with the stars about it. Whatever your answer to that yearning is, whatever visual as an answer, or whatever your sound of that of that answer is, if you haven't shaken hands with that knowing yet, you might even feel overwhelmed by it. And this happens, I notice, a lot. I see this around me a lot. You've heard me say this when I say to my kids, how many happy grown-ups do you know? Not very many. And what I notice about that is those who, and again, it might be you, who haven't said yes to whatever that match to their yearning is, to the possibility of a match to that yearning is, it can be so overwhelming. It's like the sky, if the answer to that yearning was the sky, the lack of the answer to that yearning is the depths of the ocean. And the surface, of course, is where we meet. And depression, from my experience, is a byproduct, or can be a byproduct, of the depths of that ocean without the match of the sky above. And I don't know what that is for you. And I couldn't even, I will never, oh, please hold me to that. I will never, ever, ever presume that my understanding of the sky will be your understanding of the sky. Because that space is sacred. And it is sacred to you and your understanding of that sky, or of God, or of spirit, or of what I'm calling spiritual home. And my question for you today is, how often do you go home? Another question for you today is, what is that home? It doesn't have to have a name. It really doesn't. But do you have a sense of it? Can you catch a glimpse of it? Are you on the periphery of it? Have you touched the center of it? What color is it? What does it sound like? Are there senses there? Meaning, can you sense it? Because what I know to be true in my own experience, and certainly as a single person, that right now, I don't have a pillow beside mine. I don't have a pillow beside mine. That's on this human plane. That pillow is empty. And I'm also very aware that on a grander scale, I don't have a pillow, but I do have the sky. And sometimes, just as we have the discipline of going to bed every night, and the discipline, if we are conscious and aware and practiced and devoted to being in partnership, that we do have that pillow time with our beloved. And in this space where I don't have that pillow, I do recognize that when I am disciplined in that other kind of pillow, in that pillow of sky, in that pillow of my sacred devotional pillow talk, if you will, with my understanding of spirit, God, that I'm never alone. And not as a substitute for this beautiful gift of a human experience of having a partner in my life. And when I have a partner in my life, to not forget that that partner I have in my life is actually also held in the sacred sky of devotion that I have outside of the partnership. So the partnership doesn't have to carry so much. We put a lot on our partnerships. We put a lot on that empty pillow. We put a lot on that filled pillow. We put a lot there. It's actually more than the human psyche can hold. So I invite you today, in the stories from the car, meep meep, to reflect on your spiritual pillow and that beautiful sacred bubble of time and connection that you have. What is your spiritual home? What does it look like, sound like, smell like? How do you go home? And I invite you to inquire there and start listening. I'm TinaO from TinaO Life, and this is Stories from the Car, and this was a conversation about your spiritual home. I will catch you again the next time me and Meep Meep are out there thinking and exploring and meditating with you. Ciao, everybody.